Fox News alert, new reaction from President Trump to the latest developments surrounding special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe. The president says he has the right to pardon himself, but that he's done nothing wrong. This after his attorney said in several interviews the president might have the authority to pardon himself, but that it would be unwise politically for him to do so. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith, and here today, Harris Faulkner, Town Hall editor and Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich, host of Kennedy on Fox Business, Kennedy. And joining us today on the couch, Sirius XM Patriot host and Fox News contributor David Webb is here, and he is outnumbered and in some sparkly, flashy cufflinks.
Hey, you know, Reagan cufflinks.
Those
I
are
love
beautiful.
them.
They were actually made.
They were made by Anne Hand. She designed them for the president. It says you have a date with destiny.
Wow, nice.
And aside from the official cufflinks, which I also have, these are my other favorites.
Beautiful.
Cool.
And I have Supreme Court cufflinks, which I know goes to something we're covering today, given to me by Justice
I
Kennedy.
hope they made more than one of each of these things.
Do you get
All right.
royalties?
You would think, right?
Yeah.
And look, I can't compete with Charles Payne on his cufflinks, but I do like mine.
Well, no one can.
no
All
one
right.
can.
Let's get to the news. A lot of a new reaction to developments surrounding special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe. Over the weekend, someone leaked a 20-page letter the president's legal team wrote back in January to Mueller's team. It says the president cannot possibly commit obstruction of justice because he has unfettered legal authority over all federal investigations, and that he has the broad authority to pardon himself. President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who had not yet joined his legal team when the letter was written, was asked about that. Watch.
He has no intention of pardoning himself, but he probably does. It doesn't say he can't. It would be an open question. I think it would probably get answered by, gosh, that's what the Constitution says, and if you want to change it, change it. But, yeah.
A lot of focus on the president.
I think the political ramifications of that would be tough. President Trump has no need to do that. He didn't do anything wrong. The idea is you can't interfere with him either from a point of view of indictment or question. You can't interfere with the president's time.
Former U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara weighing in on all of this as well.
I think it would be outrageous for a sitting president of the United States to pardon. I think if the president decided that he was going to pardon himself, I think that's almost self-executing impeachment.
This morning, President Trump tweeting, as has been stated by numerous legal scholars, I have the absolute right to pardon myself. But why would I do that when I have done nothing wrong? In the meantime, the never-ending witch hunt, led by 13 very angry and conflicted Democrats and others, continues into the midterms. Kevin Clark is live at the White House following all of this and more for us. Kevin, good morning, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Let me tell you, that was really quite an interesting read, talking about the letter that you just mentioned there. Listen, Sandra, the president's attorneys made clear their perspective. He could not only end the Russia probe entirely, he could pardon himself if so desired, so say the president's lawyers. Now, my colleague, John Roberts, actually got a hold of this letter a little while ago, and he obtained this missive, which frankly is legally pretty comprehensive, and some would argue strategically bellicose, page after page aimed at laying out the parameters for a possible discussion with Mueller in the future. That is, should his legal team allow it. Let me take you back to Twitter. The president offering this: the appointment of the special counsel is totally unconstitutional. Despite that, we play the game because I, unlike the Democrats, have done nothing wrong. Now, the ferocity of the pushback by the president and his attorneys really undergirds the argument that bringing Rudy Giuliani onto the team in effect represented a real turn to an aggressive posture. And speaking of the mayor, he was asked if the president's claim about pardoning himself was legit. Here's what he said.
Almost impractical. You know, the guy, the president of the United States, pardoning himself would just be unthinkable, and it would lead to probably an immediate impeachment. You know, you get the House, Senate be under tremendous pressure. President Trump has no need to do that. He didn't do anything wrong.
This president himself has been very cooperative, but he makes clear every single day through his considerable social media platform where he tells America instantly and simultaneously, everybody hears the information at the same time, how he feels about this investigation.
It is indeed clear how he feels about it. Meanwhile, one of the president's biggest critics, Adam Schiff of California, writes this: the president's legal arguments would render whole sections of the constitution that is, moot. and allow a president to engage in any form of criminality and obstruct an investigation into his own wrongdoing. Nobody is above the law, not this president, not any president. Very interesting. Pundits obviously disagree about whether or not this would be politically expedient or even wise for the president to do it, but legal scholars would certainly argue it's up for debate. Very interesting indeed. Sandra, back to you.
Kevin Corke at the White House for us. Thank you. Just past the noon hour, and the question still is, can the president pardon himself?
The fact is, under the powers of the Constitution, could he pull it off? Will it be a legal issue? Yeah, but I think we're looking too close to this. Let's pull back and look at what is the defining or a developing legal strategy. When Giuliani was added to the team, the broader strategy is to be more aggressive, to set the American people up with a narrative, and to have that contention with Mueller. I think we're going way too close. This Adam Schiff's statement makes no sense if you actually read it, because it doesn't do what he says in the first part, doesn't render portions of the Constitution moot, but it actually shows that the president's strategy is working because the Democrats are being pinned into a corner. How do they counter this legally?
Kennedy?
I don't think this is what the Founding Fathers had in mind, and certainly when they were crafting the Federalist Papers, that the president would have some sort of absolute authority to absolve himself almost completely. And I think that's why there is legal disagreement here. Everyone knows that this would be horrible for business. The president knows it. Rudy Giuliani has said that. Corey Lewandowski has said that. So whether or not there are people who work for the president who are close to the president and big supporters. And that's why, again, you have the difference between what if. So what if the president pardoned himself is very different than, wow, what is happening right now? The president just pardoned himself, and there are many who despise the president who are acting as though he has already pardoned himself, which makes this thing a huge distraction. And you have to look the long game. Yeah. The short game and these questions, they are all a massive distraction to keep you from either talking about something in the future or to, not talk about
But
why
that's
the
why I
president
say
should
it's a
sit down.
strategy. This is part of a strategy. I agree with
But
you.
they fall for it every time.
Well,
Look at Adam Schiff. I mean,
Yes,
they'll all
that's
come
exactly
out
right.
and
But
come out
he's
done
operating as though the president has pardoned him.
Go ahead, Harris.
I was just going to bring up a quick point, because it seems like leaks, we talk about a leak at least once a week. Like, how are these things leaking? Like, how and
deliberately.
Right, and what is the retribution? What is, remember, former President Barack Obama went after leakers. And in fact, that administration was very well known for its prosecution. I see you nodding. I mean, it got pretty serious. Where is this administration on this? Because these are leaks.
Harris, if the leak is coming from the White House legal team or the president's legal team, then they can't be prosecuting their own legal team, right? I mean, the memo that we saw that was leaked, which is the series of defenses from the White House legal team against the Mueller probe, is very similar to what we saw last month when they released the questions that Robert Mueller was supposedly going to ask the president. And if you read through the memo, it is very obvious that it is a full-throated defense of the president, getting it out there, making the case that the president doesn't necessarily have to sit down with Robert Mueller because his legal team has already answered all of the questions. They go case by case, subject by subject. They talk about all of the memos that they've turned over, all the documentation, the millions of pages that they've turned over. And so they're making the case that, look, to the American people,
is there
all
a
the
risk
information
to
is
that
there.
backfiring, getting that information out, though? Maybe it wasn't. I don't know the genesis of the leak. I see you smiling.
It may not have been them, but based on the defense that is being put forward, I think that it is beneficial to the administration rather than hurtful.
Yeah, and whenever you see something like that, it's rare that anything comes out that casts the administration in a positive light. So I absolutely agree with Katie there. And they're also, they are making their case. They're laying the legal groundwork for really what they're doing is narrowing the parameters for a sit down. Because what everyone is agreeing on is it would be best if the president sat down.
I just bring this up because, David, it seems like no matter what, this is how we learn about things. And it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is a double-edged sword, but that's why I say go back and look at an overall strategy. And all of us are really talking about a strategy here being put out by the administration. The other issue that's not brought up, I look for the what's missing, is that when you look at the charges that could be brought against the president, nothing's been said. If there are criminal charges, that would be different when it comes to pardon powers.
Well, and David,
So
we're
that's
talking
different.
about pardons. I know that the president can pardon himself before a crime is even charged, but the fact that the media and the narrative now is talking about the president pardoning himself when we haven't even seen charges or an indictment from Robert Mueller seems to be getting ahead of those.
He tried to change that with that tweet this morning, though, right? To immediately transition back to calling this a witch hunt, led by 13 very angry and conflicted Democrats and more. All right, we'll leave it there. The Supreme Court siding with a Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple, but stopping short of a decision on the broader issue of whether a business can refuse to serve gay and lesbian couples. More on the potential impact of today's ruling.